Hello YouTube, this is Froogle, and here we are in X-Plane 10.3 beta, taking a look at Carenado's new Cessna CT206H, otherwise known as the Skywagon or the Super Skywagon or the Stationair. Stationair obviously being a combination of the words station wagon for the air in Cessna's wonderful way of naming things. Now, a lot of people groan when they see another Cessna from Carenado going, oh my god, another Cessna from Carenado. That's kind of like saying another truck from DAF or another Ferrari, another two-seater sports car from Ferrari. It's what Carenado do best, so why the hell not? Now, the CT206 is actually a turbocharged engine, so it's got a bit of power compared to other Cessnas out there. It's also a six-seater aircraft, although in some territories like Canada, they actually took away the six-seater ranking and gave it a five-seater ranking because of a problem with opening these clamshell doors. Let me show you some of the animations here, and I can explain how that works. So there's a pilot door animation on the other side of the aircraft. Let me whiz around there real quick. So obviously we click on this pilot door button, there's the pilot door opening and closing, fabulous stuff. If we walk around this side, there's a clamshell door because this aircraft is used to carry not only people but also cargo and even skydivers, so having that clamshell is pretty useful. Baggage door 2 opens just fine. Baggage door 1 opens just fine, but if you notice there, the path of the door actually interferes with the flaps, and the Canadian air authorities didn't like that very much. They noticed that it was very hard to get somebody out, and there was a malfunction. If the flaps were down, you couldn't open that door. So what Cessna did was they actually installed a special switch so that if the door was open, the flaps are disabled. That's actually not modeled in this. They actually do something a little bit differently. So let me jump into the cockpit. I think my master switch is on. Let me have a look. Yeah, it is. So if we jump outside and lower the flaps, let's see what happens. So we can actually lower the flaps all the way, but then if you close the baggage door, notice it raises the flaps and then the door closes. So that's not terribly realistic, as I understand it just from Wikipedia. I could be wrong. Wikipedia is known to be mistaken in places. That's incorrect, but even so, it's a neat touch from Carenado. Now, other stuff we can do here, obviously there are static elements, so you can see some cones on the ground. The aircraft is chopped right now. We can remove those by clicking that button. We can remove the fairings on the wheels as well. I'm not sure if that has effect on aerodynamics. I have tried flying with and without, and I haven't really noticed a big difference. Instrument reflections on the windows, kind of cool. And transparent windshield. This is a neat feature that you see in a lot of Carenados. We currently don't have the transparent windshield on, so you can see some smudges on the glass here. A few reflections up here. If we turn that on, or off I should say, or on, I guess it is on, we actually turn off all those effects, which saves you some frames if you've got a slightly weaker PC. I like leaving it on. Now, this is the first aircraft for X-Plane from Carenado that actually supports the new GNS 530 GPS in X-Plane 10.3. That's both a great thing and a bad thing. Now, it's a great thing because, well, first of all, the GPS is a major step forward for GPSs in X-Plane. In FSX, the complex aircraft you have and the complex FMC behavior you have in those aircraft, like the Aerosoft Airbus, like PNDG, and so on, they actually implement that complex behavior by taking the built-in GPS and building a user interface on top of it, which simulates the actual aircraft. We haven't had a complex approach-capable GPS in X-Plane 10.3, so that's one of the reasons we've not had very many very complex aircraft in X-Plane 10.3. So the addition of this is a very cool thing. It's also not a cool thing because currently I just don't like how it works in places. You'll see that in a second, and it's actually the reason why, even though we are at John Wayne in California, I am not flying on Pilot Edge. We'll go through that in a little bit after I start this up. Now, it's a standard Cessna, so starting it up and getting it running is pretty easy to do. No great shocks there. Just make sure our props and mixture are pulled all the way back first of all. Let's go through the checklists. So we're going to turn the master switches off. Great. Avionics master switch should be off. Cowl flap should be open. They're actually down here. There's that little handle down here. See that? All the way up the top is open. Fuel selector valve should be on both, which it currently is. Circuit breakers don't work, so we don't even need to check them. Going to crack the throttle a little bit, just to make sure it's all synchronized, which it is. So crack the throttle a tiny bit. Set the prop to high RPM. Mixture is on idle cutoff. Propeller area is clear. Yep. Master switches turn on. Now, before we actually turn the engine over, we need to make sure that everything is working the way it should. So we turn on the auxiliary fuel pump here. And watch this gauge. I'm going to advance the mixture to rich. See the needle move? Let it sit there for a few seconds. Put it back to idle cutoff. And then turn that fuel pump off. So we effectively just primed the engine. All that remains to start this is actually turn the switch to the start position and move the mixture lever up. Now I've got my controls set up a little obscurely in my mixture lever, just like in the aircraft. It's on the far right of the aircraft, but I need to turn this with my mouse with my right hand. So bear with me if the sound of my voice gets a little bit weird as we try to do this. There we go, probably best I don't speak. So mixture full rich, make sure oil pressure is coming up, which it is. We'll turn on our flashing beacon and navigation lights down the bottom here. That's the taxi light, that's the navigation light. And then we'll turn avionics master on and put our radios on. Now there's the first issue, this GPS doesn't ever turn off. That's not a Carenado issue, actually that should have been turned off, I'm not sure why it wasn't. Bad Froogle, pretend they were off. We'll squawk VFR. Good. So there's the first issue with the new GPS. I can't actually find a way of turning it off, which is a bit of a pain. Now you can pop this out by clicking that. We'll get onto that in a second. The engine is obviously very, very loud right now, so let's do what we can to fix that. We're going to bring the RPM back to 1200. And we will lean at 1200. Now, as with all X-plane aircraft, leaning is a little aggressive. There. In a bit. There we go, so nicely leaned out. Let me show you this GPS and my issues with it. One thing that they've started to do, which I really, really like, is you can actually use the scroll wheel on these knobs here. So to tune this, I can just roll the scroll wheel and it will go through the numbers, which is fantastic. I really like that. But look, I'm rolling the wheel now. You see the numbers flashing? I have issues with tuning this thing. I can go down, going up's a bit of a problem. If I just click, so I'm just clicking to go up, it's not working. If I go over here on the inner knob, click to go down, it's flashing. So this is actually one of the problems I had on Pilot Edge. When I tried to record this video on Pilot Edge, I couldn't tune the radios properly. That's not a Carenado problem. That is the fact that this is a beta version of X-Plane 10. So concessions must be made, and that's one of them. The other issue I have, now this is a Carenado problem, and I think it's worth pointing out. It's not a showstopper, but let me see if I can zoom in up here and turn track IR off. Okay. You can monitor radio frequencies with COM1, COM2. Great. That's great. They work fine. However, I can't switch my mic. So what I had actually done when I was trying this on Pilot Edge was I'd done all my clearance stuff, tuned COM1 into SoCal departure, ready for the flight, and then I tuned COM2 into ground and tower, so I could easily go onto COM2, say COM2 mic, talk to COM1, talk to the ground and talk to the tower on COM2. Once we get in the air, switch over to COM1 mic and not have a lot of hassle managing my radios. These buttons not working is a problem if you are trying to fly this online. Be aware of that. You're only ever going to be able to use COM1. I didn't try with this button, but no, that's not even working either. So that's a bit of an issue. Let me zoom out and let's look at this GPS once again very, very quickly. I know some of you have not seen it. I've currently got my route keyed in here. It will take a full flight plan, as you can see. So PDZ to KONT, that's Paradise, to KONT, which is Ontario in California. Then back for some reason to John Wayne, then repeat. So let's not do that. Let me click to bring up a cursor and let's scroll down here. Come on now. Ah, I did it all completely wrong. Hang on. Clear, clear, clear. Okay. So let's clear this one out. Clear. Enter. We'll go down to the next one. Clear. Enter. And we'll go back up to the previous one. All works exactly as it should. It's a pretty cool GPS, other than the quirk that the radios are hard to tune. Okay, so we've got our route in here now, PDZ to Ontario. Great. Now what you can also do, because it's a fully approach capable GPS, is you can actually click on procedure here and you can choose activate vector to final, activate approach, select approach. Let's go ahead and select approach. Let's say we were taking ILS to 26 left. Very easily scroll down to that. Click on enter. We can take vectors to that approach, or we can go direct from Paradise, so we'll take that. And there it is. There is our full approach. First time we've seen a proper GPS doing that in X-Plane. So that's why this is a big deal. If I wanted to at this point, I could go ahead and load that. Enter. So now it's added in all the waypoints for that full approach to runway 26 left. We're not actually going to follow this, but that's kind of cool. I think you'll agree. Other than that, it's a standard GPS. It works just the way you would expect it to, which is a wonderful thing, because we've never had that before in X-Plane 10. For now, we're going to get rid of it. Now, I've already set my barometric, which is correct. What we are going to do is, well, I'm going to turn off track IR here. We'll bring up Sky Vector. Here's the route that you just saw in the GPS, from John Wayne out to Paradise, then turn left up to Ontario. We're not going to do that. We're going to fly, pretend we're on Pilot Edge, take off, turn heading 330. Once we're released from the airspace, we're going to turn north and intercept this radial, 58 degrees, from Seal Beach, 115.7. So let's go and key all that in, and we'll do it all on the radios in the sim, which is a little bit better. So 115.7 is what we want on Nav 1. Now the nav tuning actually works pretty well. Whoops. See, I'm switching it all there, but if I actually go and push the cursor here, this actually works pretty well. No problem at all there. It's just the comm radios that I seem to have a problem with. I don't know why. Maybe I need to switch on nav before comm. No. Oh, yes, actually you do. Bug fixed. No, it's still flashing. Anyway, 115.7, that's all set. And we're going to pick up the 58 radio. I've already set that in up here. So we're actually very, very good and ready to go. Now we have a fully functioning autopilot, which we could use, and I think we will use it. So we'll go down here. We're going to be cleared up to, I got in here 3,000 feet, so we'll set that as armed. We are going to be in heading hold initially. We'll turn the autopilot off. You're down to heading hold, armed up to 3,000 feet, so we're all set. Autopilot is off. So that's all set. Let's go and taxi out to runway 19 right. So let's look at the before taxi checklist. Windows, vents and heaters, adjust as required. Yeah, we're all good. Mixture should be leaned at 1200. We already did that. Throttle, okay. Auxiliary fuel pump should be off. Parking brake will release that and start taxiing. So let's turn the taxi lights on. Alright, so we're taxiing up to runway 19 right now. Now you've noticed already it's pretty loud. That's why there's a volume adjuster built into the pop-up here. You can adjust it here. This I don't like very, very much. It works, but look. You see that? It's a little too easy to have it kind of jump around. I found the best way of clicking it is to just click like that. If you're on Pilot Edge or VATSIM, you're going to need to use that because the aircraft is so loud. While we taxi, let's go to an external view and you can see what this is like. There it is. We're kind of hurtling down that taxiway, so let's slow down a little bit. Not sure why my other views are not working right now. There we go. Bit of an X-Plane issue there. It's a really good model, as always with the Carenado ones. Dan Cloud did a great job on this. All the animations seem to be correct. The texturing is fabulous. Not sure why my nose wheel steering is a little bit slow though. Look at that. For that amount of turn on the nose wheel, you would expect it to be turning a little bit more viciously than it is. You see that? So that's something perhaps that could be tweaked. Now we said that we're going to fly heading 330. I've already got that on the heading bug. As always with X-Plane, it tends to preserve the stuff that you set into the aircraft on the last flight. So having practiced this a couple of times, it's already got that stuff set in there. Okay, so approaching 19 right now. We'll put our flaps down for takeoff. We'll turn on our strobe lights, P3, landing lights. Check that we're clear on the left, which we are. And we will line up and go. Just check, stop here actually. I should have done this before, but we'll stop here and check all the rest of the checklist. We're not going to do the run-up test, but cabin doors closed are locked, cargo doors are locked, flight controls are free and correct, flight instruments are checked and set. Yes, they are good. Fuel quantity, we're half, that's good. Mixture now fully rich. Fuel selector both, valve, make sure it's still on both. We could do the mag check at this point, which we're not going to do. Next page of the checklist. Friction lock has been adjusted, strobe lights are now on, electric trim has already been set, radio and avionics we're not using, autopilot is ready to go and off, cowl flaps are fully open, elevator trim and rudder trim are set for takeoff, wing flaps are set for takeoff, brakes release, and away we go. Now after takeoff, normal takeoff, we're going to set power to 39 inches, manifold pressure is right here, and then we're going to set 2500 RPM over here. And then the en route climb, I'm going to set the power down to 30 inches, that white line right there. Let me zoom in. There. And 2400 RPM. There. So a little bit more complex engine management than normal. And we would lean to 20 gallons per hour in terms of the fuel flow as well. Maximum. Anyway, let's go. Let's get 39 inches if we can. A little bit squirrely there. I was looking at the dials. So we're climbing now, obviously. Let's get above 200 feet, 300 feet, we'll pull the flaps up. Best rate of climb is 89 knots. There, flaps up now. Bringing back the power at this point to 30 inches. And we'll bring back the props to 2400. Like so. And we'll climb at about 89 knots and turn to our heading of 330. In fact, let's try out the autopilot at this point. Landing lights can go off. Select vertical speed here and we will increase our rate of climb. A little bit too fast right now. You can see already it's got a lot more power than a typical Cessna. There you go, speed's coming down now. We're on 330. Just watching my speed here. There we go. Ease up on that rate of climb a little bit. So once we leave John Wayne airspace, about here we'll be vectored normally to do whatever we want within reason. So once we get about here, then we're going to turn and try to intercept that radial. So we're going to be turning pretty much north. Now I know I'm not hand flying right now, we will hand fly later on obviously for the approach and the descent. It actually flies very, very well. Of all the Cessnas I've tried from Carenado in X-Plane, this one is actually one of the most fluid, I think is probably the best way of describing it. It's really quite nice. Okay, so let's assume we just got cleared for own navigation, so we'll turn directly to the north. Try to pick up that radial from Seal Beach. Ontario now is about there. We're just going to fly up here, just to the left of this mountain range, then we'll turn directly north towards Ontario. I do hope they get that issue with the tuning of the radios in the GPS sorted out fairly soon. I would love to fly this on Pilot Edge because it is such a nice aircraft to fly. And it's got a good turn of speed as well, so you could even do some of the more complex procedures and complex training on Pilot Edge, like the V3, which is obviously the next thing I need to record. Let's pop outside and take a look. Really, really beautiful modeling. High quality textures here, very high definition. It looks great. It really does look great. They've done a great job. Obviously internally it's very nice as well, as always with Carenado. Now one of the things I like about all the Carenados, in X-Plane in particular, is their lighting. Their lighting is so cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the lighting on down here. There's two switches. One is the radio panel, one is the panel. So there's the main panel lights. There's the radio panel lights. You see, we can dim those and brighten them. Let's change the time of day. I think I screwed up a little bit there. There we go. Really nice lighting in here. Really, really high quality. I like that a lot. There's Ontario all the way out there. Let's change back to daytime. Turn those lights off. They are very bright indeed. So we're in the Chino Delta airspace right now. Let's just get a better readout of how far it is to Ontario. So we'll do direct to. Okay. O. N and T. So we're 7 miles outside now, so probably time to turn the autopilot off and start beginning our descent. The airport is 900 feet elevation, so our our pattern altitude is going to be 1,900 feet. So what we do, we'll rich the mixture, reduce power, close the cowl flaps all the way, turn the autopilot off. I have control. Now we're flying this manually. So bringing back power a little bit now. Starting our descent down to about 1900. Let's trim this. It responds to trim very, very, very rapidly, as you just saw. That's really virtue of it being a sim. In the real aircraft, it's harder to move the trim wheel that fast. It really does feel very, very fluid as it moves through the air, which I really like this aircraft. I really do like this aircraft. Now the GNS 530 there, that I've been having problems with for tuning the radios, although out of the box this supports it, you do need to move a file once you've installed the aircraft to make that thing be available in the cockpit. If you don't move that file, it's in the README when you get the aircraft, then you end up with the old GPS. I might actually try that on a second flight later on, see if I have less issue tuning the radios so I can use this on Pilot Edge, which I would really like to do. Alright, so we're going to start our turn now, so let's just check everything. Seats and seatbelts secured and locked. Fuel selector valve should still be on both, which it is. Mixture, full rich. Props, high RPM. Landing and taxi lights should both be on. So taxi lights can go on now. Autopilot is off. Let's start our turn. I'm going to get shallow that descent a little bit. We went a little bit dramatic on the descent there. Drop the first stage of flaps. Base leg. Quite hard to see the runways here in X-Plane, which is quite realistic as well. Runways don't tend to have a nice thick white outline around them like they do in FSX. Now landing the aircraft is very easy. If you've flown any Cessnas in any sim, you should have no problems with this. Does tend to come down a bit fast, but it never really gets away. Establish our descent here. More power. We'll slow our rate of descent. And we're down. Very soft landing. Let the speed bleed off before we start standing on the brakes. Now again, as you saw on the taxi out, the nose wheel is not quite as responsive as I would expect it to be. So feeding in the nose wheel and the brakes a little bit. There's a bit of a ground friction bug in this as well. The aircraft does tend to stop a little bit too soon. You can see it kind of grinding to a halt there when I really didn't want it to. So that makes, there you go again, it just stopped. So that's a bit of a pain. It takes quite a bit of getting used to, and as you can see, I'm not used to it. Whoa. I should stop here. So, let's fire up the replay and I'll talk you through some kind of impressions of this. Go out to there and pop out to the exterior view. So my impressions of this, I like it. I like that it's a turbo. It's got a lot of power. It's got a lot of range as well. And with the addition of the GNS 530, it's very, very well equipped for long cross-country stuff and even fairly complex IFR stuff. The problem is, and it's not a Carenado problem, that GNS 530 still has some issues which need to be worked out by the X-Plane team. I don't like that. I also don't like the way the radios work, that you cannot select mic on COM 1 and mic on COM 2. That's a problem for me on Pilot Edge. It will be a problem for you guys on Pilot Edge and of course on VATSIM. Be aware of that. Hopefully Carenado do fix that fairly soon. But other than that, it's a really nice aircraft. It flies really well. I love how fluid it is. And how natural it feels in flying. It really is a very, very nice aircraft. The question is, if you already have a Carenado Cessna, should you get this one? That really comes down to you, I guess. If you're a big Cessna fan, then absolutely. If you want a realistic, very natural feeling aircraft, then this is a good choice. Other than that, it's really down to you. I don't think I wasted my money on this. That's a key point. I did buy this. It wasn't sent to me. And I'm quite happy with it, honestly. This plus the B200 that I've yet to put a video up on really complete my general aviation hangar, I guess, and they're from Carenado and are really, really good. Anyway, let's fast forward this and look at the landing. Surprised how soft that landing was, to be honest. There we go. One of the things I like about the X-Plane 10 replay system is being able to put the camera on the end of a runway. So let's do that. There we are. And we can zoom in. You should be able to see a little bit here that there was no wind on this landing, but it's a very fluid flight model. You can see it kind of moving, undulating a little bit in the air, quite realistically. And again, really high detailed modeling. And quite a soft landing here. I managed to flare it pretty well. There we go. A little bit off the center line, but there we go. Anyway, as always, my name is Froogle. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be gentle. And if you haven't already signed up, head on over to forums.fruglesim.com and I will see you all there. Until next time, guys. See you later.